Hey, everybody, and welcome to Ben and Nate's Questions That We Ask People on the Internet. I'm one half of your host, Nate Fay. I'm a licensed massage therapist with over 20 years of private practice. I'm also an osteopath as well as a master myoskeletal therapist. And when I'm not in my private practice, I'm on the road presenting for Eric Dalton and the Freedom from Pain Institute.
Hey everyone, I am the other half of your co-host, Ben Stone. I've been a licensed massage therapist for over 20 years. I have a wide range of experience in the massage world, from working as an employee to owning my own massage practice where we employed several massage therapists. I hold the title of Master Myoskeletal Therapist, and I value learning above all else, and that's why I love making this show with Nate. And hey Nate, we have a disclaimer alert.
Disclaimer alert, disclaimer alert.
The opinions and views shared on the Nate and Ben Show are our own and do not represent the opinions of any other person or organization that we may be affiliated with, work for, or contract with. The main purpose of this show is for entertainment and education, and if you feel that you are entertained or educated in any way, please let us know.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 12 of Ben and Nate's Questions That We Ask People on the Internet. And hey, Ben, before we get down to it, how you doing this week, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing really good again, and I've been able to see some sunshine this week. How about you? You've been seeing sun out there on the East Coast?
We went from snow to mud season to like warmth, but we're easing back into the cold this week. So, but no snow. There's no more snow on the ground right now. Well, I guess we got a little bit, but so that's good.
What's been the best thing that's happened to you this last week?
I think I'm digging being back on a normal schedule between holidays, snowstorms, getting sick, and all that kind of good stuff. So I feel like in the past week, I've been back to full momentum in my practice, which has been good. How about you?
People are going to blame me for just copying whatever you say, but I'm the same. We're getting back into, all the holidays. We're getting into what I talk about is just the grind. We're getting into the grind of January and February until we hit spring.
Yeah, and we were talking about it earlier about, right, being self-employed, stuff happens, right? Snowstorms happen, people cancel, we get sick, we lose a day. And, sometimes we as massage therapists can make that decision, right? Whether we just overload our other days or see in 6 to 8 weeks. That kind of thing.
When you miss out on a day, you can't make it up. You can try and work more, but you'll never get that day back.
That's the truth. But a wise man once said, if we didn't love it, we would just go find another job.
Who is that wise man?
Guy by the name of Ben Stone said that.
Fantastic.
Hey, before we get to the question at hand, you got any other questions for me this week?
I do have a question for you.
I'm ready.
It goes along with the theme of today. What's our theme for today, for episode 12 of Ben and Nate's Questions That We Ask People on the Internet?
Our theme today is coaching and mentoring.
So I got a question for you. How many life coaches does it take to change a light bulb?
How many life coaches does it take?
Only one, but the light bulb really has to want to change.
That's right. We got a laugh from our friends in the background on that one tonight, too.
I think we're going to have a good episode based on just that reaction right there.
Hey, I think we are. So we hope that everyone's been tuning into our past episodes. And here we go with story time about the massage industry with Ben and Nate. What's our question this week, buddy?
The question reads, and I'm going to give it to you straight off of the website because we ask people on the internet. And the question is, what qualities are important if you're going to hire a coach or a mentor? Also, tell us about one good experience you had with a coach and one bad experience you had. That's our question. Here's the question I like to ask you, Nate. Tell me, is there anything particular behind why you wanted to ask this question?
Well, I was thinking about past experience where I received some mentoring. So I went and paid for coaching and mentorships, having to do with not only my massage practice, but getting my technique and my skill set, where I wanted it to be at. And I was thinking about that. That was a few years ago. And I was thinking about, if I was to get coached or mentored again, what would I be looking for? And I've been doing some coaching and mentoring myself, and it's been interesting to sort of watch that evolve. But then, with social media and particularly like Instagram and Facebook, seeing other, particularly in our world, massage therapists advertising themselves as coaches and or mentors and the sort of ideas that they're selling. So I kind of wanted to explore that tonight.
Where would you like to start exploring this concept of coaching and mentoring?
Well, why don't we talk about, we're using two different words, right? We're using the words coach and we're using the word mentor. So do those words go hand in hand or do they mean slightly different things?
What's the difference between a coach and a mentor? Is there a difference?
You know, I think there's probably a slight difference. I think if we hear the word coach, we might think in the realm of sports. So we might think more of a group, perhaps like a group activity, and perhaps even in like the business world, business coachings, business meetings, something along those lines. So I picture in that case, like a leader or somebody with, enough knowledge to lead a group or to lead a team, somebody with that experience. And I would think that, and I'm making this up, but I think a mentor or mentorship would feel more like a one-on-one opportunity with somebody that, has a certain level of expertise that you're seeking interest in and that would work with you one-on-one rather than a group atmosphere.
That's interesting. You bring up some interesting differences. I agree with you. A coach, it seems like you can put anything in front of a coach and you can be a coach, life coach, business coach, basketball coach. You can be all different kinds of coaches. And then a mentor maybe has a little bit more knowledge of your particular industry or profession.
That could be the case as well. So if in the massage world we're looking to hire somebody one-on-one, we could think of different things that would be for. Maybe you're looking to understand how to increase your business or perhaps make more money over the course of a month or the next year. Or maybe you're looking to, like I said earlier, develop a particular skill set with your techniques. And we'll jump into this in a little bit, but one of my favorite things to do is with other massage therapists when they come into my practice for a one-on-one training or mentorship is sort of be their eyes and ears, watching them work and how they're performing the techniques and how they're working through a session.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go back to talking about the differences between a coach and a mentor. And I mentioned this a little bit off air, but I'm going to throw this in. What about a consultant? Where does a consultant fit into all this?
Where does that fit in? A consultant to me would feel like more possibly like in the business realm of things, maybe somebody that's going to be the eyes and ears to your practice or your business growth. That's what I would think of the first thing when I hear the word consultant.
When I hear consultant, I think about, someone who's going to advise you on how to run your business and not work with you, but tell you, hey, how do you optimize best what you're doing, looking at your fixed cost versus variable cost versus income versus expenses and how to optimize all that. That's where I see a consultant coming in.
Yeah. So probably my guess is within the massage community itself, we're probably really sticking with either coaches or mentors for the most part. I would imagine, unless you're like a big multi-person practice or a franchise type practice.
Absolutely. So then the next question I want to ask you is, why would one want to hire a coach or a mentor or work with a coach or a mentor?
I think I kind of in some ways looking at it as taking like a continuing education class, and some of the reasons behind that. And I know sometimes for me, one of the reasons I want to take a little bit more education, I'll say, right, helps to keep the flame burning. And, we're hoping that, coach or a mentor is going to sort of serve as a, somebody that's going to, keep motivating you, and keep inspiring you. Somebody obviously that has been in the industry, not always necessarily for longer, because longer doesn't necessarily mean more expertise, but something that you're particularly looking for growth.
Those are good points. And also, I would think you would want to hire a coach or a mentor because of their experience, to share their experience with you. Again, help you with your personal development, help keep you accountable, all the things that you mentioned.
Yeah, someone to serve, and I really like this. And by the way, we should put a link in this. You sent me a great TED talk about coaching, and one of the things that he talked about is being your eyes and ears. I think it's a great subtle point.
Yeah, and I like the overall theme of that TED Talk. So the man's name is, I don't know if I can say it right, but I'm going to try. Atul Gawande, Atwul. But anyway, the theme of the talk is, as a professional, how do we get better? What are the things that we do to get better? There's certain professions where you graduate from school and you get into your industry and that's what you do, say accountant or a surgeon or something along those lines. Then you have other professions where you're never done getting better. So say like in the realm of sports, you could win the national championship, you could win the Super Bowl, but next day you're going back to practice.
Yeah. And he talks about that too, by the way. He talks about that he's this surgeon. He's been to school for a million years. He's got, so much expertise, and somebody's going to watch him in the surgery room. And it's like, well, what are they in his mind? It's like, well, what are they going to watch him do? And it was all subtle things. You're holding your arm up too high. You're holding your breath, all these little things that could, perhaps increase his longevity in the career, hold him back from possibly, injuries or anything else, and make for probably a much smoother experience. It's all those little things. It's all these little things that we do as humans that we don't realize that we're doing until somebody watches us.
Yeah, it may be a little too soon for this question, but I'm just going to throw it out there and maybe we can come back to it later. But how do we as massage therapists get better? And I know one of those approaches is we attend continuing education workshops. What else do we do as massage therapists to help us improve?
Well, and we've said this episode to episode, right? Oftentimes we're in our own little bubble, we're in our treatment room all day long. And so, quite frankly, I could speak for myself. I'm happy with my practice. I'm happy with the income that comes through my practice every year. And despite taking a lot of education classes and despite, being on the road teaching myself, I'm kind of sitting back these days going, man, I think it's time. I think it's time to sort of get coached again and have somebody take a look at my overall practice and what I can do better. And I worked with, I'll tell another quick story. I've been working with a client who, she actually is a massage therapist, and she's dealing with chronic low back pain. So one of the things that we've been doing is sort of like dissecting her day to day. So one of the last things that we did, and I said, why don't you film yourself working on somebody or a couple different clients and let me just watch how you work. And she did that, and being her sort of eyes and to pick out these like subtleties of her body mechanics, if you will, the way she sort of chronically hunched over the table the whole time and looking down the whole time and not even realizing it. And that could be, contributing to her possible low back pain. And she's like, I've been doing this for 18 years. And she's like, I never thought about this before. So it was just picking out, perhaps a subtle thing that she wasn't thinking about.
Yeah, what do they call that? Death by a thousand cuts. It's not that one time that you do it, but it's over and over and over.
Yeah, for sure. So that was a pretty good moment. I do see a lot of coaches out there advertising. We can get into this in a minute as well. Selling therapists on the idea that they can make $20, $30, $40,000, whether it's per month or hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. And I sometimes wonder once we start to talk about that sort of marketing, and who that's really for and what that's sort of trying to achieve. And, is it attainable? I'm sure it's attainable. It's definitely attainable. But are there sometimes coaches and mentors out there selling something that's so far out of reach that possibly will never happen? And then it becomes more of about the coach and the mentor themselves.
I want to share with you, I got a text from my coach yesterday, and he let me know that I didn't make the team.
Didn't do it, huh?
Another joke. Just threw that in there.
Thank you.
I think we need to talk about what was one of your favorite responses that we came across to this question.
I think my favorite response was in line with what you and I are starting to go towards here was, right? I mean, if you're going to hire somebody, first of all, personality, energy match. Does this coach and or mentor understand your goals and what you want to achieve in that day or those couple hours? What are you trying to embrace? So that was essentially, one of the responses that we got. Is there a personality, an energy match? Is there an understanding of goals? And what kind of help are you particularly looking for? And then on the other hand, and sort of what I posed earlier, one person wrote in and said that, are there coaches and mentors out there that are just too pushy to the point of bullying into using a particular system or product, right? And making it seem to be like almost delusions of grandeur, if you will. So I like both sides of the coin there.
Yeah, when you brought up bullying and a coach wanting to push their system, that almost seems like they're not necessarily a coach, but now a consultant. They're telling you what to do versus working with you.
And it's easy for folks out there that have developed their particular method, right? They developed this method, they've written it out on paper, they've got a sort of a point A to Z, and in their mind that their method is going to work for anybody out there. And that becomes a point where, to me, you're not necessarily listening to the person that's actually hiring you. You're potentially, their goals are out the window. It's about what you want, and you're selling your system. And perhaps, like one of our listeners wrote in, perhaps maybe that becomes like a little bit more bullying or trying to sell you on something that doesn't necessarily exist. And you and I have said it time and time before when we've talked about therapy. If certain therapies worked for people, why would they be in our practice? And if some of these methods out there that are going to make somebody hundreds of thousands of dollars, why aren't we hearing more about those people that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars by following that particular method?
How would you suggest one goes about finding a coach or a mentor?
Well, I think the obvious answer, and I don't really think it's the obvious answer, but the obvious answer is one might, look in their social media groups and whatnot and see who's out there advertising. But that's not really my answer. My answer is I want to look to a colleague that is perhaps doing something that I'm a fan of or perhaps enamored by, and think to myself, hey, I really want to understand what they're doing a little bit more. And then perhaps approach them and talk to them about, hey, I love what you're doing in your treatment room, or I love the stuff that you're posting about online. Would you work with me a little bit on that?
I feel like there is a difference between a coach and a mentor in terms of pricing. I feel like if you find a colleague, a mentor, someone local, they would probably be likely to help you out here and there for free. I'm guessing. I know I do that for some people.
Okay.
As long as it doesn't go overboard, 15 minutes here and there, chat on the phone. Hey, tell me what you would, that kind of thing. Versus I feel like a coach is more formal and would require some kind of payment. And is there a difference in the quality of the help that you're going to receive? Maybe, because you would think a coach would have some type of formal coaching training, possibly. What are your thoughts on?
Well, my thoughts as you're saying all this is that, as I'm thinking about the people that put themselves out there for doing this type of training in our world, and, admittedly, even myself, perhaps many of us are using the terminology wrong. What type of coaching do you do?
What kind of coaching does Ben do? I'm going to call the coaching that I do is more informal and just trying to help some other massage therapists who have reached out, just help them with what they're struggling with and give them ideas and try to find out what their struggles are, give them ideas for what's helped for me in the past. And hold them accountable to going through with some of the ideas that they wanted to try.
So those are typically maybe like a shorter phone call. They're not necessarily coming to your practice and hanging out for a day or a couple hours or anything like that.
Nope. It's just been phone calls and then short in person, maybe an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, in-person chats.
So then perhaps a mentorship or mentoring might be more in person, coming to perhaps your practice or you're going to their practice, and might be more of an expansion of either looking at their skill set or working with them on techniques or whatever their goals are, as one of our listeners wrote in and talked about.
Yeah, I think in any circumstance, identifying goals is important because we do that with our clients. We identify their goals, help them out, try to get from point A to point B somehow, some way.
So in that case, have you ever have you been on the other side of the coin? Have you gone to somebody for coaching and or mentoring?
Absolutely. I've had probably 3 or 4 coaches in the past. And that's one of the things I notice is if you find a coach, you don't know if they're compatible with you until you work with them. And just like a massage therapist, you work with them and you're like, hey, I don't think you're the right one for me. And it may take, a session or 2. But once you figure that out, I don't have any problem saying, hey, you're not the right one. We need to find somebody else. It's hard to
Yeah.
do.
For sure. What were some of your reasons for seeking out being on that other side and getting coached or mentored?
Yeah, it's that business side of things. I opened up a multi-therapist office. So at one point we had 8 massage therapists that we employed, W-2 employees. And, the struggle is always, or has been for a while, is hiring people and then putting all the systems in place so that you don't have to tell people, hey, we need to wash sheets, we need to clean the rooms, we need to do this. All that stuff you're not prepared for as a bigger office. I mean, I needed guidance and someone to help me with putting all that in place.
And it worked out for you. You learned something, right?
I learned something. I'm now back on my own. I'm a solo practitioner.
Interesting tales.
Yes. Doesn't mean I was bad at it. It's just, I'm regrouping and waiting for something else that I'm gonna explore here pretty soon.
Actually, you were very successful at it.
We did well, and the business
Yeah.
is still open. I sold my half
Yeah.
to my business partner, and the business is still running. So
Well, there you go. Then
I'm
that's
absolutely proud of that.
yeah, you should be super proud of that. I've been on both sides of the coin. I've gotten mentored, and for myself, that was particularly to improve my skill set. From a hands-on standpoint of view, from a technical point of view, and understanding the techniques that I was most interested in. Along the lines of osteopathic and myoskeletal alignment techniques, and that's particularly what I sought. The goals were for the most part, met. I left in those instances coming back, and certainly a much stronger therapist in understanding hand placements and when not to particularly use many of the techniques that I interact with on a weekly basis.
What do you feel like was the most helpful as far as technique mentorship?
I think the most helpful was just fine tuning hand placements, and again fine tuning, particularly when not to use the techniques themselves, and also watching another therapist at their practice interact with their own clients. So a lot of that was super helpful for me in my, several years ago in revamping and how I practice, and things that we've talked about over the past several episodes as well. I've also been asked to mentor other therapists. So I've probably done about a half a dozen of those. And those have been for therapists almost for the same reason, that want to particularly improve and get better at, the particular techniques that I work with, in the realm of osteopathy and myoskeletal alignment techniques. But most recently, I think one of the last mentorships that I've done in my practice, I think what was interesting was to start to utilize, even though I just sort of heard that podcast you sent to me recently, but sort of be their sort of eyes. And we started the session, and she said, I just want you to watch me work for a little bit. And let's not talk about anything. And I just want you to watch me work. And it was great. And we just started to pick up on some subtleties about how she, moved around the table, about how she used or didn't use the table to her advantage. And it was just all those subtle things that, after we talked about it, she within 20 minutes already was making leaps and bounds. And I thought that was like pretty awesome. So I've kind of changed my mind a little bit on, not only from our conversation already, my mind is changing as we're talking, but, certainly how I would want to work and approach other massage therapists that might come in and work with me or work with you one-on-one.
Yeah, one of the things that we did in our office was we would work with each other and do observations. So I would go in and observe another massage therapist work for maybe not the whole session, but maybe, the first 30 minutes. They would come in and observe me work for, maybe not the whole session, but a little bit. And then we would write out some feedback based on what we saw. And, I don't care who you are. If you just started massage, just graduated school 2 years ago, if you come in and you see something that you can recommend to me, I'm all about it.
I'm with you. And, a lot of this thinking too, having studied classical music for a good chunk of my life. And, that's, playing an instrument, if you will. Right. And you think you're playing great and you're at the top of your game, almost like the surgeon conversation earlier. Hey, I've been playing for 35 or 40 years now. Where can I go from there? And, and then just having a lesson, if you will, having a lesson or a one-on-one coaching session or an instructional, and having somebody else listen to your playing and picking out things. And some of the greatest musicians, and again, according to that podcast, had continued to do that for the length of their career as well. At the end of the day, one of the other things that I learned from that other podcast, and I'm hoping people will learn not only from that, but from us, but some of the greatest and the smartest people out there hire coaches and hire mentors.
You know, it doesn't have to be a permanent thing. You hire a coach for 6 months, 3 months, and then you work on what you've decided to work on, and then you move on. From there, you can work on those things and you evolve. And then you need to find a different coach to help you evolve to a next level.
Yeah, for sure. I've lost track. I think I've taught between like 30 and 40 seminars at this point. And one of my favorite things, right? It's a little bit of reverse coaching, you know, when at the end of a class, when my feedback forms come in. And one of the things that I always look for is if more than two people kind of said the same thing, just a bit of, you know, just a constructive feedback. You know, if people tell me things like, hey, man, the room was too cold or the room was too hot or the lights were too bright. And I always make that joke, hey, when you're filling out those feedback forms, you know, there's not too much I can do about that. But, you know, tell me, what did you like about class? You know, what was something that you would like more of next time or less of next time? And over the years, you know, I've taken some of those consistent things, and it's only made my workshops improve too. And you know, and I've also videotaped myself and, you know, sent it to, you know, some of my favorite instructors and educational people in the seminar, and had them watch that and also offer coaching as well. Yeah, that stuff has been invaluable. Invaluable.
That's fantastic. So first of all, you have to recognize that there is room for evolving. I'm not going to say, you know, necessarily getting better, but we all want to get better. But there's a form of you evolve from where, you know, you've evolved from where you were at last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Sure.
You know, what you do is not the same now as what you did then. So there's an evolution of who you are and what you do. So you have to recognize that that's possible. You have to want it first. You have to seek it out. And so where do you seek that out from? You go to the coaches, you go to the mentors, but then you have to be able to take that advice, coaching, criticism, and work with it and use that to evolve. And if you're not willing to do that, and I see a lot of people who go to continuing education classes and they go to a lot of them, but yet they change nothing from what they've done. Their work is the same as when they graduated massage school. I just go to these workshops because I'm checking the box to get my continuing education credits. I'm not changing anything.
I don't particularly stand for that mentality, and I have no problem with being vocal about it. You know, if somebody's, you know, sitting in a class with their, you know, as our good friend James says, you know, with their arms folded, you know, and not being open to learning. And, you know, it's, you know, right away, it's like, well, you know, I've been a therapist for 28 years. And in the back of my head, I'm going, that doesn't mean anything. It absolutely doesn't mean anything. And be open. It's like, I want to hear, hey, listen, I've been a therapist for 28 years. And man, I am like learning something. And this is like, I'm going to take this home and like run with it. And I've seen all sides to that sort of triangle. I mean, I've had people in my class, you know, in my particular experience say, man, I've been doing this for 30 years. And just when I didn't think I could learn something, that was amazing. I've had, I've been a therapist for 30 years and, you know, who cares at this point? That breaks my heart. And I'll be vocal and I'll say, well, you know what? You should care. You know, you should be open to learning, because it's going to show back in your practice. Your clients are going to know it too. Then, you know, the other thing, man, I was out in San Francisco back in the fall. There was folks that just graduated from school that were crushing it with their knowledge and their skill set. And it's like, there you go.
I love to hear that, because I do feel that the massage industry is evolving and for the better. Where it was at 20 years ago when I started, I think I shared this story with you, but I'm going to share it again. It was about 8 years ago. I got an opportunity to attend my first dissection, not dissection, prosection. So it was already dissected. We just got to review muscles and tissues and landmarks on cadavers. And I was so excited. And I had a massage therapist that came to see me, and I was telling her all about it. It's like, hey, I'm going to go to this pro section this weekend. And she was like, honey, I've been doing massage for 28 years. I don't need to know muscles anymore.
Imagine going like your orthopedic doctor and, hey man, I need my hip replaced. And I've been doing this for 30 years and I don't need to know, like where to cut. It's like,
I just know how to do it.
I just know how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. So what about we brought this up earlier, so let's go back to this. So then what about the type of coaches that maybe have a system in place, right? And maybe kind of back to our answer, maybe that kind of is they're going to now push what they have and they're going to sort of bully you into what they have, and this is the way it should be done, buy my product, buy my idea, and you'll be making millions of dollars per year. How does that fit into people's lives?
Man, everybody wants to make a lot of money doing what they're doing. Not everybody. That's not the be
Not
all end
everybody.
all.
No, it's not.
Success can be, defined differently by different people, but that's a big one. Money is a big factor. And
Sure.
so when you promise, hey, I can turn your practice into, you can make over, $100,000 a year, $200,000 a year. That's attractive.
So then you buy into their method that costs like $10,000. No, we don't really know. I don't know how much some of those methods cost to buy into. And so then you buy into it and you follow it. And what are the outcomes? And I ask this sort of hypothetically because once again, these coaches that are out there advertising it, where are the results? No one, who's talking about them?
I do believe that some of them are getting the results, but like you said, is there a one size that fits all?
Yeah.
Some of those massage therapists, they don't have the personality to say, hey, I'm charging $200. I'm changing my rates from $65 an hour. And now I'm going to be charging $200 an hour. And if you don't like it, you can go somewhere else. And
Sure.
now this person, I mean, I know that there's more behind that. You just don't change your prices and all of a sudden
Right.
you're making all this money overnight. But those are some of the things, I've looked into some of these because they look appealing. So I'm like,
Of course
I
they do.
want to know more. Why should I, fork over my hard-earned money to you? What can you do for me?
Yeah, and so I think my takeaway from that too, Ben, is I think my takeaway is that just because it's sort of a shiny button doesn't mean that, do your homework. So for those of you that are listening and have never done a coaching or mentoring and maybe are inspired to do so after tonight's episode, do your homework, see what aligns with your goals, see what aligns with you, write it down and have a list and, and kind of shop around a little bit for what's out there and who's out there and what their experience is.
Well, is there anything else that we need to talk about some of these approaches to massage and their methods that they sell? I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing because I'm sure there's people that are being helped by it.
Yeah, that's right. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing either. And I think it really, at the end of the day, depends on how folks go about it, and what's your approach from the perspective of that you're the coach, you've got a high valued item, and are you pushing me into this? Are you bullying me into this? Or are you working with me towards that goal? I mean, I'm not, like you said earlier, I'm not going to go spend my hard-earned money tomorrow. Sometimes that's a relationship that's got to be sort of, and kind of developed over time before you do something like that.
And I feel like these systems are less of a coaching system and more of I'm just going to call it a consultant. They're telling you what to do. Because all the coaches that I've worked with, they don't ever give you an answer. And it's so frustrating. Like, well, what do you think we need to work on today? I'm like, I don't know. You're the coach. No, it's not like that. But
right, but I understand what you mean.
They work with you and say, hey, what are you struggling with? Where can we lead this session today? And they never give you answers. And at one point I just stopped the coach and I said, at some point, I just want you to be a consultant. I don't want you to make me come up with all the answers. Just tell me what I need to know, but that's not how coaches work.
Yeah. So I think that's a valuable lesson tonight. I think it's a valuable lesson again for anybody listening to this, to break it down. Are you truly a coach? Are you a consultant, or are you a mentor, and what are you advertising?
Yeah, and I tell you, there's enough people out there who love the profession that would be very willing to give you advice on a mentorship basis, which I consider to be probably you wouldn't have to pay them very much. Like, I know I've done that. Like I said before, I'm willing to share as long as it doesn't get too crazy involved.
Yeah, I get messages on a regular basis with therapists asking me questions, and I have no problem putting 5 to 10 minutes into that. But certainly if somebody wants to come to my practice and spend, 6 to 8 hours with me and receive months and months and months and months worth of my own education and expertise, then I am certainly going to charge a reasonable, fee for that.
As you should.
Yeah, right. And as anybody should.
There is a perceived value when there is money involved. So that means you are going to pay more attention and the person there is going to pay more attention. I feel like that's valuable.
Yeah. And, and it's interesting too, based off of that, those folks that ask you questions, like quick 5 minutes or 10 minutes of your time, or ask me questions or anyone else. It's always interesting that when they get the answer that hopefully they want, they kind of run at that point. So the value really is, well, if they got what they wanted and they're gone. There was some value there, but there's not always value in something that doesn't necessarily have a money value, versus somebody that just paid 25 grand to hang out with Ben Stone for the day. And you bet your bippies they're going to pay attention.
Heck yeah. I was just telling someone today, I define success differently than other people do. And she asked me if my prices were going to go up. And I said, I look at my expenses and I look at everything that goes on during the year. And so being a solo practitioner for a year now, back to being solo, I need to go back and look at all my, income and expenses. And I said, I'll make adjustments based on that. I'm not going to just say, oh, I'm raising my prices because I came up with a number because someone else is charging this or that.
Right.
I base it off of what I need. I don't base it off of what anyone else does. And I said, you know what? I like coming into work. I want to work. I love doing this. And I'm also going to throw out a reminder that once we hit episode 20 of Ben and Nate's questions that we ask people on the internet, Nate and I are going to go live. And you can consult, confer, ask us questions. We'll probably have a theme for that day. But once we hit 20 episodes, we want you to come join us and hang out for a little while.
So, hey, this was a fun episode 12.
It was. What did we learn?
I love hanging out with you, Ben. And I love this conversation about differentiating, coach, mentor, and consultant. So it kind of made me think how I'm going to revamp a couple things personally on my website. And see, that was a coaching moment. You coached me on something. I learned something. I learned something tonight.
I'll send you the bill.
And thank you. And I think, again, for those of you that are listening, for those of you that are considering, getting a coaching session or getting a mentorship, make a shopping list of what you're looking for. And before you commit and spend that money, interview the person that you're going to be paying, because most coaches and mentors do come with a little bit of a price tag. So make sure that it's going to align with you and your beliefs and what you're looking for. And hey, at the end of the day, be open to learning no matter how long you've been in this field. How about you, buddy?
What did I learn today? Oh man, it just reminded me the value of coaching. It's been a while since I've been with a coach. And so I feel like it might be time to pick someone's brain and to really look at my past year, see what things went well, what things I think could go better. A lot of that revolves around education. So I'm probably going to dive into education some more because that's what I do. But yeah, it just made me think about, where does Ben want to go in the next year, 5 years, 10 years? Who knows?
I love it. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Ben and Nate's Questions That We Ask People on the Internet. And how can people find us out there?
Just go to our Facebook page called Ben and Nate's Questions That We Ask People on the Internet. Find out the question of the week and interact with us and let us know what you think and submit your own questions. Where else can they listen to us at, Nate?
You can watch us on YouTube if you want to watch our episodes. You can also tune into one of your favorite streaming services such as Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.